chilly in the mornings, but I don't think that's pretty.
I almost came in my sweatshirt, but I was like, professional.
So few opportunities, you gotta take them when you can.
No.
Call the meeting to order. Yes,
Yes, sir. Father, we love you. We thank you for another great day. Thank you for the moisture. Thank you for protection, blessing, and for the privilege of living in our community in this great nation. For your wisdom on the meeting tonight, your direction, and your continued will and direction for our lives as we move forward. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Changes to the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. The move by Commissioner Belton, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to public comments. It's time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you state your name and address, speak respectfully, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. No one online. Moving on to the discussion agenda, Commissioner priorities for 2023.
Mayor and Commissioners, the last meeting we discussed some priorities and reviewed those. You'd asked me to go back and kind of try to flesh out some of the comments that were made and sort through those. So in front of you in your memo is a listing of some proposed priorities based on that discussion. As I understood them, the first is housing with a couple of subpoints in between that, maintain infrastructure with 3 subpoints, and then support the health and vitality of our community with another 3 subpoints in there as well. So would entertain discussion on this to see if I accurately reported it and if there's any adjustments that you'd like.
No, I reviewed it. What pass it over. Good.
Okay, if that's good, then just to make sure we've got your consensus to move forward with this as our priorities for this year, and we'll work to keep everything in line with it as much as we can.
Look forward to seeing how creative we can be achieving these.
There are always things that come up that may not fit that we do need to visit about, but as far as trying to make sure that the majority of our focus is on these items. That's what we're looking.
Very good. Moving on to the action agenda, minutes of the January 4th, 2023 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the January 4th, 2023 meeting.
The move by Commissioner Hutchinson, seconded by Commissioner Belden to approve the minutes of the January 4th, 2023 meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to appropriation ordinance number 1.
I had a question on the contract for the screen for the Broadway Plaza. So the screen is, last time I went by, it was still broken, right? So what is this? What is this? You know, is it a contract? Who?
What is Daktronics?
It's Daktronics.
I did
This
email
is the
Nikki
amount
Reed
that-
about it about a week ago, and she said she had forwarded an email in August on what to do next, and it's not sure what to do next. So I asked Marcia this evening if she was following up on that, and she was with the Broadway Plaza.
This was the payment for the repairs that we've already received insurance for. She just wasn't going to do it during the busy season, and so now, and they have to have it paid before they order the part.
For the screen?
Yes. For the repair of the screen.
It's interesting. Because all of those modules there's a lot of them that have to be replaced. I can't.
I questioned it numerous times. I said, that can't be it. And the screen was $160,000. And and she said, it's not a bulb, it has to be a whole square, whatever. And I said, this can't be it. This has to be for one. And she said it was for everything. So hopefully that's right, because that's pretty
The
reasonable.
invoice said something about 26.
Yeah. And of course, there's one completely missing. But
I guess if we bought the screen, we should have bought it by the monitor. Would have been cheaper.
yeah, that's the case. That sounds to me like it's probably one.
That's what I thought too, but yeah, I mean, she's right, it lists 26 or whatever.
Okay.
Thank you.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 1.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Hutchinson to approve appropriation ordinance number 1. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the resolution 2023-2148 waiver of gap.
We have to do this every year to, according to statute, to step away from gap requirements and use the cash basis of accounting. So that's fairly common in Kansas, and we've done it since 1983.
Question on that? Move to approve resolution 2023-2148.
Second.
It's moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve resolution 2023-2148. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to resolution 2023-2149.
Mayor and Commissioner, this is a result of receiving insurance proceeds for the fire damage structure at 223 West 11th Street. And we have to start this process within 45 days to guarantee that we can keep the money until the projects become safe again. And they haven't pulled the permit or anything yet, but I did contact the owner. There's not, the damage doesn't kick in the requirement for a permit. They've just got some interior damage for removing material, putting it back, and also just siding, vinyl siding and melted windows on the outside. So there's no new electrical or anything, so they don't really need a permit, but I went ahead and started this process anyway because I want to make sure we're holding our feet to the fire. And he's waiting for basically his siding and windows to come in so you can get that place running. You know, he wants to get in and off of it. So I anticipate that we may even be, when the public hearing date comes, it may be done. And we won't have to have a public hearing, but we'll have it and put, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and go through the motions if that happens and say that there's no need to keep the money anymore. I may have even returned the money by then, but we'll see. But I want to get this started because I wanted to make sure that it got done. So with that, I recommend you just approve this resolution and we'll keep track of their progress and make sure they get it fixed up.
Does he still have the other apartments rented?
Yes, I believe all of
Just
them are
the
rented,
front.
just that one is not. And it didn't even, there was no damage to the other apartments, not even the smoke damage really much. They must be separated fairly well.
Yeah, I think she's gonna get after it pretty quick.
And
Go ahead.
move to approve resolution 2023-2149.
Second.
It's moved by Commissioner Belden, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve resolution 2023-2149. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to Board of Zoning Appeals appointments.
And we have two terms, two people's terms, Sammy Britt and Darren Hill. Actually, tomorrow is the end of their term, so I waited till today to get them on the agenda, because I didn't know if somebody else would be turning in, maybe that you wanted to choose from, but these are the only two. And they've, one of them served a couple terms, and one of them served one term, and Darren also serves on the planning commission. And so, we had no other expressions, and city constantly advertises for board members and commission members, planning commission members, things like that, so. With that, I would recommend they've served fine, and that we reappoint Darren Hill and Tammy Griff to another term on the board of zoning appeals.
Move to reappoint Tammy Britt and Darren Hill to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
It's moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Belvin to reappoint Tammy Britt and Darren Hill to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the manager's report.
Mayor Commissioner was out last week, back early morning this Sunday, so we split around the issues with the FAA, which we were very appreciative of. So Ocean was beautiful, but glad to be back to Kansas. So really, really nice. Next Wednesday is local government day in Topeka, so if you want to join me, let me know. I can send you the schedule and get signed up for that. I'll also be staying in Topeka Thursday and Friday because I'm on the search committee for the executive director for the League of Kansas Municipalities, and we'll be doing interviews with 3 finalists those 2 days, along with the governing body meeting then as part of that. So be in town for that. If there's anything that you want me to check on, anything with any agencies there, let me know. Be happy to do that. The league is also monitoring the start of the session, sent out some information. There's Senate Bill 21 that is discussing creating a 2-day sales tax holiday in August for back to school shopping. And that would impact our local sales tax, so we're kind of watching that. I haven't followed up yet this week to see if any movement happened on that. I don't know, Ashley, have you heard anything, or have you been monitoring things?
No, just that they're considering it. I mean, I'll be incredibly concerned about our impact here.
Yeah,
It's probably a good thing.
For just 2 days. So yeah, I was gonna ask if there was anybody that had any concern about that we needed to pass on to the league, or if it was okay with us if we lost a couple days of sales tax for back to school shopping, it would be okay. Another one is 3 mile zone. There's some legislation that doesn't have a bill number yet, but they're being discussed that the 3 mile fringe on the outside of the city right now, state statute would allow cities if they wanted to go in and use some extraterritorial jurisdiction related to zoning, and that's typically for areas that will plan for future annexation or future growth. The legislation that's being proposed would eliminate the ability of cities to be able to put any extraterritorial jurisdiction in that area. So the league is kind of watching that, and there's cities that are interested in that. I think it's important for us to follow that as we roll into our comp plan update for this year, not knowing what the results of that will be. We'll need to monitor this closely so that we know, give us some guidance on what we need to do to move forward.
Amy, I had a quick question on that, because I saw it in our notes. So you remember when we had like the tower that was going up, the cell phone tower? So why none of our zoning was able to, help those neighbors? Why?
I'll have to look to Bruno on that.
Okay.
He's our expert.
So why, I mean, this 3 mile, if it's so important for us to be able to exert zoning 3 miles out, why didn't it come into play there? Not saying it was right or wrong, but.
Well, first of all, you have to have 2 people on your planning commission that are from the outside of the incorporated city limits to be able to make those decisions and to be able to have those in place. Right now, the only thing we have in place is in our comprehensive plan. It says that we should go consider that. And every time we redo the comprehensive plan, that becomes an issue, because the comprehensive plan always says to consider going out and do an extraterritorial zoning or jurisdiction or even annexation for growth. It's always a controversial issue,
Sure.
But in order to do that, and whenever the last time the planning commission did the comp plan, that became a big issue, and I had several people from out in the county coming in concerned and suing me for it. And I explained to them that we can't even do that unless you have 2 people from the county on your planning commission. And they have to be from the area. Of course, if you're looking at just going out broadly 2 miles, then it doesn't matter if they live within that 2 miles, but they have to be within the area that's being considered for extraterritorial jurisdiction, whether it be for specific reason to go out and get nuisances, or to go regulate building construction or development of land in any way. The only power we ever had that I've noticed in the last 23 years to actually do that was when we did the airport. Because the federal requires you to keep things clear. Now we have to shorten the runway to be able to develop a piece of land across the deal. So that's the only one I'm aware of. But the one mistake I think we may have made, because I look back at that, the one mistake, and I looked into this legislation, and this legislation here comes down, it's coming down from the federal government, believe it or not. The federal government wants to be able to regulate cities out of, they want to be able to, if you're low income, you want to put an apartment house up here, low income, it can go anywhere, and it doesn't matter, right? I've got a pretty good resource on that, and some information on that I should have brought and read it to you, but what I'm getting at is it really can't be done except for on that cell tower deal. We had that land platted. That land had been platted in the 80s. It was the Craig's Craig subdivision, Craig's edition is what it was. That land was platted out in the county. The only land that got annexed in, and this has happened before, the only land that got annexed in was the land they developed, and the only land they developed was the one they can get the utilities to easy. Otherwise, they're going over a hill. Now you got a pump sewer, or the main's got to be super deep or something like that. So they didn't do that, and then one person ended up owning all. It's just pasture basically. But there's a 15th Street platted through there. There's lots platted in there. When we had that platted, we should have just went out and annexed it. At any time, we could still do it, but now you got a legal non-conforming use out there, and that can exist forever on that tower. But I think at the time we had the power to annex that land in because it was platted, and we should have done it. Should have been done because the agreement for the Hugh Craig addition had that in there, that the land had to be annexed in. For whatever reason, it wasn't enforced. And I've noticed there's been a couple of situations like that where the upfront agreements, yeah, everything looks good, but then to follow through and enforce that agreement onto the person that made the agreement. You know, maybe when they did the Craig's addition, they put in a lot of new streets and new water lines and new sewer lines, and then they started building lots and stuff. And then some people bought a lot to build something or to keep it from being built on. Well, that hurts the overall infrastructure tax, assessments and that kind of thing. So I don't know if they just ran out of money and couldn't develop on over, or had another agreement somehow, but.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can't do extraterritorial jurisdiction by state law unless you have two people on the planning commission that are from that area.
Okay. Sorry for the rabbit hole. I just was interested on,
Yeah.
as we develop our stance on it, just to kind of maybe further understand what actual implications it'll have, not just feared implications.
Yes.
And there's plenty of cities around that do that. Extraterritorial jurisdiction isn't uncommon, especially for big cities that are looking to grow. They're constantly fighting growth, and they'll go out and get land and be pretty ruthless about it sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know that we want to.
No, that's one of our problems. We've never been
Yeah.
very forceful about that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
The league doesn't anticipate any movement on revenue neutral rate legislation that came into effect here a couple of years ago. Last year, there was a lot of talk about amending it, but now they don't anticipate much talk about amending it at all, just kind of leaving it alone for another year. There's also been some movement on bills related to franchise fees that would hinder abilities of municipalities to negotiate franchise fees with companies, particularly streaming services. So right now we can have franchise fees with a lot of the utilities, power companies, cable companies that have actual wires, natural gas, for example, electric, for example. But the streaming companies that go point to point wireless, we may not be able to negotiate franchise fees with those if this legislation passes. So we're watching that closely as well, because franchise fees are a good revenue source for us as well. So we want to make sure that we're protecting our revenue sources as much as possible. So those are things that the league is watching right now. If there's others that come up, I'll be sure to let you know. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Staff reports?
So I just want to make everybody aware that we are starting to see a little fentanyl in the Concordia area. We were made aware of it. We haven't tested the per se fentanyl yet to confirm it is fentanyl, but through most of our training experiences, we can identify it as fentanyl. We have reached out to the high school and to the college and kind of gave them a brief summary on what to do if they see it and how to handle that. Is there any questions?
I think it's everywhere.
Yeah. We're trying to stay ahead of it, but it's gonna be a tough race.
Any other staff reports? Mayor, Commissioner comments?
I have to say thank you to Chief Gehring. I had somebody reach out. There was apparently an issue in their neighborhood. By the time somebody else had reached out to me, by the time I reached out to that person and said, you know, who you need to contact, you had already contacted them and assured them that you would look into it. So thank you for being on top of that. Your
Thank you.
first week of work. Thank you and good luck.
I just had a thought the other day on the new housing area that we're trying to develop. Is there any area in there that could be a playground? Because we have playgrounds in Hood Park, we have playgrounds on Second Street. Joler Park doesn't have any playground equipment in it, but there is a park there. We have second, or there's another
Decker.
Decker. But I got to thinking, if we're wanting medium income families will probably have kids. I know it's close to City Park, but so are some of the others, so.
That's something that we can take a look at as we work through the planning
Yeah,
process on the space layout.
Just got to thinking, there's no park in that area of town. So,
And how far would it be? I mean, that's just, I get kind of turned around, it's just down the street a bit, isn't it?
Joel?
You have to drive around the golf course to get there or
Okay.
through.
Okay,
It'd be easier to go city park.
yeah.
Okay.
But since Hood Park does so many neighbor things, want to develop that mindset. Park's a good thing to have.
There's no parking in the future.
No. We talked about it.
I don't have anything.
I move that the city commission recess into executive session to discuss confidential business data or trade secret business KSA 75-43-19 B4 with Amy Lang, Justin Farrell, and attendance to reconvene in the city commission chamber at 6:10.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Wentz to adjourn into executive session. Aforementioned reasons, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. No action was taken.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Belton to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion is adjourned.